Introduction. So your dog might be a skinwalker. Welcome to the Tips to Survive guide that's here to help you navigate the twisted reality where your adorable four-legged friend might actually be a nightmarish skinwalker in disguise. If you're scratching your head right now, wondering whether those strange growls and midnight howls mean more than just an upset tummy, you've come to the right place. You see, skinwalkers are trickster spirits that can shapeshift into animals, and they have an alarming knack for picking up our beloved canine forms like it's a damn costume party. The result? Your pooch might have a little more trickery and a little less loyalty than you'd like, and no amount of obedience training will fix that. But fear not. This guide is packed with practical tips and hard-earned wisdom to help you spot the signs of a sinister impersonator and deal with your possibly cursed companion. Whether you're trying to decipher that new suspicious bark or just want to avoid getting lured into the woods by a dog that's a little too good at making puppy eyes, we've got you covered. We'll walk you through how to keep your furry menace at arm's length, but still looking cute on Instagram, the best ways to incorporate silver into your pet care routine, and how to set up emergency plans that would make the local disaster response team jealous. And don't worry, we'll do it all with a healthy dose of humor, because if you can't laugh at the absurdity of trying to leash up a mythical monster for its daily walk, you're in for a rough ride. So grab your collar, your holy water, and your favorite chew toy, because it's time to transform your home into a stronghold against a skinwalker dog, and maybe keep your sanity intact while you're at it. Welcome to the guide that'll help you recognize your canine companion's shady habits and stop them from turning your life into a terrifying game of fetch. Tip 1. Check for telltale signs. Alright, dog lovers, it's time to dive into the first and most crucial tip for surviving your skinwalker dog. Spotting the telltale signs that your furry friend is more woof than wolf. Sure, he looks like Fido and barks like Fido, but if you're reading this guide, something's clearly amiss, and your suspicions might not just be the latest internet conspiracy theory. First up, vocalizations. If your dog suddenly starts making sounds that resemble human speech, or worse, starts mocking your mother's accent, it's time to reconsider that obedience school recommendation. Dogs barking like parrots or howling like they've watched one too many horror movies is your first big red flag. Bonus points if it's in a language you don't even speak. Next, the gait. Real dogs have that adorable, bumbling run that makes you want to throw them all the chew toys. But if your pup's movements look like they've been choreographed by an interpretive dancer on roller skates, you might have a problem. Watch for limbs that bend where no limb should bend, and a tendency to stand upright like a low-budget werewolf. If your pet suddenly walks like a cryptid auditioning for Cirque du Soleil, that ain't natural. Moving on to personal hygiene. Skinwalkers tend to slip up in the grooming department because fur isn't exactly their natural state. If your dog's coat looks more like a mangy old rug, or it starts scratching itself so vigorously that it nearly breaks a leg, that's another red flag. The same goes for sudden bald patches, scales, or a weird smell that isn't just rollin' dead squirrel. And while we're at it, how's that new bark coming along? If your dog's bark is suddenly accompanied by growls that sound like a demon trying to clear its throat, or even a full-on maniacal laugh, that's your cue to start Googling local cryptid hunters and which priests do exorcisms. Lastly, eye contact. Your dog should be able to give you those big puppy dog eyes that make you melt. But if their gaze is uncomfortably intense, like they're sizing you up for their next meal or planning a coup to overthrow your Netflix account, it's time to rethink that walk in the woods. So, in summary, barking like a banshee, moving like a malfunctioning robot, smelling like a cryptid hangout, and staring you down like you owe them rent are all signs that something's not right. If your dog's showing these symptoms, grab your silver collar and holy water and read on, because you're probably going to need the rest of this guide. Tip 2. Establish clear boundaries. Alright, Skinwalker Wranglers, it's time to set some serious boundaries. We're not talking about the kind of stay off the furniture rule for your adorable fur baby. No, these boundaries are designed to keep your supernatural shapeshifter from turning your living room into a Halloween horror house. So, how do you establish limits with a dog that might actually want to limit you? First things first, pick the safe zones. Your Skinwalker dog shouldn't be given the run of your entire home, especially the bedroom. Trust me, you don't want to wake up to a dog that decided to try out opposable thumbs overnight. Choose 1 or 2 rooms where your furry friend is allowed, and make sure these spaces are well lit and secured with more locks than Fort Knox. Speaking of locks, we need to talk doors. A standard baby gate or flimsy latch isn't going to cut it when dealing with a shape-shifting entity that's half dog, half demon. Reinforce your doors with proper locks, charms, and maybe a silver-plated deadbolt if you can swing it. If you can build a literal moat around your living room, even better. Next up, charms and wards. Yeah, it sounds like something out of an ancient horror flick, but in this case, we're not messing around. Hang a charm over your safe zones, burn sage, or stick garlic cloves in the air vents if you're really dedicated. If your dog starts pacing nervously around these items or suddenly avoids crossing the threshold, congratulations. You've just identified where to put more wards. And don't forget to lay down the house rules like you're training the weirdest roommate ever. No chasing shadows, no growling at reflections, and no clawing at the neighbor's windows at 3 a.m. If your dog suddenly exhibits human-like intelligence, it's not because they've been binge-watching Caesar Milan. It's a sign they're pushing boundaries, so don't be afraid to reinforce them. Lastly, remember that treats are your friend, but only as rewards for not summoning ancient spirits in the basement or terrorizing the postman. Make sure your Skinwalker knows who's boss, and if that requires bribery via liver snacks, so be it. So whether it's an unholy barrier of garlic or a stern talking to, setting clear boundaries can help you keep your Skinwalker dog from crossing that fine line between family pet and malevolent entity. Now take a deep breath and prepare yourself for the next challenge, walking them without becoming the neighborhood cryptid gossip. Tip 3. Stick to daytime walks. All right, folks, time to leash up for a nice, wholesome walk around the block. Except with your Skinwalker dog, you'll need to make some adjustments to your regular stroll. Namely, avoiding any nighttime excursions like they're a damn plague. This isn't just about safety. It's about staying out of the local cryptid newsletter as another person missing after midnight walk. Daytime walks are your best bet for keeping your not-so-furry friend on its best behavior. In broad daylight, the neighbors are out, kids are playing, and your dog has way too many witnesses to risk shapeshifting into a beast straight out of your worst nightmares. So, strap on your sunglasses and keep your outings scheduled for high noon. Take the most public route possible where the entire neighborhood can see you. Is your usual shortcut through that shadowy, tree-lined alley? Nah, hard pass. Take the long way around. And if anyone asks, just tell them you're trying to hit your steps goal. A dog that might turn into a bloodthirsty creature is less likely to unleash itself in a crowd of nosy bystanders. Don't even think about letting your dog off leash. If you're lucky, the worst thing they'll do is bolt after a squirrel. But if you're not so lucky, you might have to explain to the neighbor why your dog is suddenly wearing the skin of her cat like a fashion statement. Keep a sturdy leash, preferably reinforced with some silver or other anti-shapeshifter material, and hold on tight. If your dog is acting jittery even in broad daylight, don't try to comfort them with sweet talk and hugs. This isn't a rom-com. They could be minutes away from transitioning into something that would make Stephen King sweat. Instead, maintain a firm grip, give them some stern commands, and maybe toss them a treat laced with valerian root. And for the love of all that is holy, if your dog starts barking at an unseen presence or refuses to budge from a particular spot, don't be stubborn. They might be sensing something you can't. So just backtrack and choose a different route. Remember, your goal is to bring your good boy home without it becoming a bad trip. Daytime walks aren't a silver bullet, but they're your best bet for keeping your Skinwalker dog from terrorizing the town after hours. So put on some sunscreen, grab that leash, and walk with confidence. Because nothing says, I'm in control, like pretending your pet isn't secretly plotting to chase you up a tree by moonlight. Tip 4. Monitor that diet. When your beloved canine might actually be a Skinwalker, it's time to play a twisted version of you are what you eat. Monitoring your dog's diet becomes a strategic survival tactic, not just a matter of keeping Fido from chomping down on the neighbor's begonias. So grab a notepad and keep your pantry locked, because things are about to get weird. First, let's talk raw meat. If your dog suddenly craves a bloody steak diet like a vampire at a buffet, it's time to raise an eyebrow. Sure, plenty of dogs enjoy the occasional meat treat. But if your pooch is chewing on bones like it's auditioning for a role in Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you might have a problem. Hide the butcher's knives and consider switching to kibble before your pet graduates from bones to ankles. Then, there's the issue of picky eating. Real dogs eat trash like it's a 5-course meal at a Michelin star restaurant. If your dog suddenly turns its snout up at yesterday's leftovers or whimpers at their regular treats like you've been feeding them poison, something's definitely off. Keep an eye out for sudden changes in food preferences, especially if they start eyeing your leftovers with that "I'm gonna take that" look. It's also worth noting whether your pooch is suddenly extra possessive over food. If you're just trying to grab their bowl for a refill and get greeted with a growl that sounds like it's been dubbed over from a horror movie, give them space and reevaluate your next move. Food aggression is normal. Channeling demon spirits for protection isn't. And let's not forget the specialty diet issue. If your dog starts avoiding certain foods altogether, like garlic, onions, or anything seasoned with salt, it's time to whip out that supernatural cook's guide. Season your treats with a hint of silver powder, safe for most dogs, or other deterrents to see if it causes a reaction. Just don't be surprised if your furry friend suddenly refuses to come near the kitchen. Lastly, remember to keep your trash locked up and your fridge extra secure. Skinwalkers are crafty and will stop at nothing to raid your midnight snack stash. A simple child lock might not be enough to keep your fridge safe, so consider investing in something stronger, like a vault. In short, if your dog suddenly develops a taste for blood, refuses their favorite snacks, or starts growling like Cujo on steroids, it's time to reassess their diet and maybe switch things up to avoid becoming their next meal. Stay alert, keep the kibble coming, and make sure the only thing your dog is devouring is the latest chew toy. Tip 5. Beware of uncanny impressions. It's time to play detective. When your lovable furball might be a shape-shifting menace, you need to know if the 4-legged cutie at your feet is the real deal or an imposter fresh out of a body horror flick. Skinwalkers are decent mimics, but they usually slip up somewhere. Here's how to spot when their dog costume isn't quite right. First, check for fur patterns. You know your dog's coat better than anyone, so look for those little markings you'd recognize in your sleep. Skinwalkers often struggle to copy every single pattern perfectly. So, if your dog's signature white patch suddenly looks like a smudged Rorschach test, you're onto something. And if your purebred suddenly has a bright pink mohawk, yeah, that's not Fido. Second, pay attention to size. If your little Chihuahua suddenly looks like a Great Dane or your mutt grew 2 extra feet overnight, you've got a dead giveaway. Sure, it might seem like they're just going through a growth spurt, but if you have to open the door extra wide to let them in, it's probably not the puppy you left behind. Next up, behavior. Does your dog refuse to wag its tail, snub belly rubs, or start growling at the family portrait like it's planning a hostile takeover? Chances are that's no dog. Skinwalkers might be cunning, but they rarely nail the joyful enthusiasm of a real pooch. If your canine seems to be brooding like an angsty teenager or pacing like a caged lion, don't ignore that gut feeling. Then there are the bonus features, weird quirks that shouldn't be there. An extra toe here, an unnaturally elongated tongue there, and oh yeah, glowing red eyes straight out of a horror flick. If your dog suddenly looks like it got mixed up with a secondhand taxidermy project, that's a clear sign your good boy is now a "what the hell is that?" Finally, watch for strange vocalizations. Dogs bark, howl, and whimper. They don't chant ominous verses in ancient tongues or laugh like Vincent Price on Halloween. If your dog is muttering under its breath or calling your name with an unsettling cadence, it's time to nudge them back outside. Maybe leave the porch light on for good measure. So, if your furry pal isn't quite the good boy you once knew, don't chalk it up to a new haircut or an identity crisis. Keep your eyes peeled for those uncanny impressions, and if you spot one, grab that silver collar and maybe some sage while you're at it. Better safe than explaining to the neighbors why your dog tried to borrow their souls for the weekend. Tip 6. Silver's your new best friend. Let's talk about your new favorite accessory, silver. Not for fashion, though a silver bracelet can be quite fetching. But for keeping your possibly possessed pooch in check. When dealing with a skinwalker masquerading as man's best friend, you'll find that silver is more valuable than the fanciest dog treat or the squeakiest toy. Why silver, you ask? Well, in the grand tradition of monster lore, silver has a stellar reputation for warding off all sorts of supernatural nuisances, and skinwalkers are no exception. Think of it as the kryptonite to their creepy Clark Kent disguise. So, how do you use it without looking like you're preparing for a werewolf apocalypse? Subtlety and style, my friend. First off, consider a silver-lined collar. It's chic, it's effective, and it keeps the evil at bay without offending your dog's fashion sensibilities. If your dog suddenly starts howling or scratching at it like it's made of itching powder, then bingo, you might just have a furry fraud on your hands. Next, let's talk leashes. A silver-threaded leash doesn't just look good. It serves as a handy restraint for when your four-legged friend decides it might be fun to chase the neighbor's cat into another dimension. If Fido recoils from the leash like a vampire from a garlic fest, you've got another clue in your "is my pet actually an ancient evil" mystery. Don't forget about feeding bowls. Swapping out that chewed-up plastic dish for a shiny new silver one could be the trick to revealing your pet's true nature. Watch how they react at dinner time. If they start eating like it's their last meal on Earth, maybe it's just delicious. But if they treat it like a bowl full of thumbtacks, well, you might have a problem. Silver toys? Sure, why not? Toss your suspected skinwalker a silver-coated ball and see what happens. Best case scenario, they play fetch like a normal dog. Worst case, they hiss and run off like you just threw a grenade. Either way, you get your answer, and possibly an entertaining reaction to post on social media. And, of course, don't forget your own silver accessories. A pair of silver earrings, a bracelet, or even a flashy silver belt buckle can help you ward off unwanted advances from your shape-shifting pal. If they start giving your wardrobe the side eye or growling at your new necklace like it insulted their mom, it's time to start asking questions. Finally, a word of caution. Don't go overboard. A little silver goes a long way. You don't want to turn your home into Fort Knox, and you definitely don't want to explain to your guests why everything, including the toilet seat, is made of silver. Keep it reasonable, keep it stylish, and most importantly, keep it effective. In conclusion, whether it's collars, leashes, or chew toys, incorporating silver into your doggy decor can help you identify whether your beloved pet is truly loyal or just waiting for the right moment to reveal their darker side. Stay vigilant, stay stylish, and remember, silver might just save your ass one day. Tip 7. Use your tech wisely. All right, digital warriors, it's time to talk tech. When you're dealing with a skinwalker dog that could slip into a shadow and vanish faster than you can say, "Who's a good boy?" you're going to need more than basic obedience training to keep tabs on your furry menace. Time to break out the gadgets and turn your home into a high-tech skinwalker-catching fortress. First up, surveillance cameras. You don't have to be Big Brother, but a few strategically placed cameras around the house will help you catch your four-legged imposter in the act. If your dog suddenly takes a leisurely midnight stroll on two legs or starts rearranging the furniture like it's planning a surprise party, you've got your evidence. Bonus points if you catch them rifling through the fridge for sacrificial leftovers. Motion detectors are another must-have. Get the kind that doesn't just beep when it detects movement, but actually sends you a notification. That way, if your dog is suddenly practicing its parkour skills up the stairs, you'll know when to grab the silver leash or when to stay the hell out of its way. And don't sleep on smart collars. These GPS-enabled bad boys help you track Fido's location like a bloodhound on a mission. If your dog is slipping through the walls to hunt the neighbor's chickens or casually meeting up with its skinwalker pals for moonlit poker, you'll know exactly where to find them. And more importantly, what to avoid. Thermal imaging is another tool to consider. Sure, it's a bit extra, but catching your dog on film when it's glowing like a radioactive radiator is a surefire way to confirm you're not dealing with Lassie. If your dog is running a fever hotter than hellfire itself, then congratulations. You've just caught a glimpse of its true self. Lastly, don't forget audio recording. Record your dog's vocalizations, and then compare them over time. Real dogs are consistent with their barks and howls, but a skinwalker might slip up and accidentally start channeling its inner demonic soprano. If the growl suddenly shifts to something closer to a Gregorian chant, you've got all the evidence you need. In summary, When it comes to your shape-shifting menace, using tech wisely is your best bet to collect proof, catch them in the act, and maybe even provide some entertaining content for your cryptid hunting YouTube channel. So gear up, stay alert, and make sure your tech-savvy watchdog skills keep your dog from making you its next meal ticket. Tip 8. Friends make the best witnesses. Alright, dog detectives, let's talk about backup. When you're on the lookout for a skinwalker masquerading as your trusty canine companion, your sanity might end up hanging by a thread. So, having friends and neighbors who can vouch for your increasingly paranoid-sounding suspicions is crucial. Plus, the more people on your team, the less likely your four-legged fiend is to pull off its next act of supernatural trickery. First, bring your closest pals into the loop. You don't need to give them the full rundown on skinwalker lore, unless they're into that. But at least let them know why your dog has been growling at the moon like it's auditioning for an American werewolf in London. The key here is to avoid sounding like you're prepping for a doomsday cult meeting. Just get them on your side with a calm chat and maybe a strong drink. Then there are your neighbors. Sure, it might feel awkward to knock on Mrs. Jenkins' door and ask her to keep an eye out for your dog's nightly escapades, but it's worth the effort. Besides, she probably needs a good gossip topic after the local book club shut down. If anyone's going to notice Fido creeping around their flower beds in the dead of night or having a heated argument with their cat, it's the neighborhood watch. Next, set up a buddy system. You know, like in kindergarten, only with higher stakes and fewer juice boxes. Having someone else around means extra eyes for when your dog suddenly goes from wagging its tail to speaking in tongues. Coordinate with your pals, and make sure someone's always nearby when you need to walk the dog or venture into dark alleys to retrieve it from that suspicious corner. And don't forget to keep everyone up to date on your emergency plans. Your pals might think it's overkill to create a full-fledged escape route for your dog's next temper tantrum, but when the barking escalates to howling that makes a banshee sound like a bird chirping, they'll be glad you had the foresight. Make sure they know which silver-infused collar or leash to grab, where to meet, and who to call if things get hairy, literally. Lastly, create a code word for when things go south. Think of it as a secret signal to let your pals know that Fido's out of line and that it's time to either distract or detain the damn mutt. Make sure the word is simple enough to remember, but obscure enough not to raise eyebrows. Cheeseballs might sound weird, but it'll save your life if your dog is seconds away from shifting into something out of Stranger Things. In summary, rally your friends, neighbors, and anyone else willing to help. Stay organized, keep everyone informed, and remember, a barking dog might not bite, but a skinwalker posing as your dog could definitely chew through your friend list if you don't keep them close. Tip 9. Always have a backup plan. Alright, Skinwalker survivors, it's time to talk about your oh shit contingency plan. We're not just talking about keeping extra dog treats in your pocket. No, this is a plan for when Fido drops the cuddly act and reveals his true, bone-chilling form. Trust me, it's a hell of a lot easier to keep your head on your shoulders if you have an escape route when shit inevitably hits the fan. First things first, create your escape route. Know your house like it's a maze and you're the prize cheese. Figure out which doors, windows, or air vents will get you out of harm's way the fastest when your dog starts sprinting at you on two legs. Practice these routes until you could escape while blindfolded with one hand tied behind your back. Maybe time yourself to see if you can beat your own record, like a twisted, furry version of Mission Impossible. Next, assemble your emergency bag. This isn't just a grab and go for snacks and a water bottle. We're talking survival essentials. Silver charms, holy water, or whatever mystical concoction you believe in, extra leashes, garlic, and your favorite self-defense gadget that isn't illegal in your state. Hell, throw in a rosary and some sage if you're feeling really ambitious. Pack it all up and keep it handy, because in a pinch, there's no time to be fumbling through drawers. When your dog starts acting like it's the final boss in a horror game, you'll want a secure place to regroup. Designate a safe room that has a lock on the inside and, preferably, no windows or other exits that a skinwalker could wriggle through. Stock it with emergency rations, a first aid kit, and maybe some cozy blankets, because there's no need to be uncomfortable while you wait out your demonic doggo's transformation. Coordinate with your backup team, and make sure everyone knows the drill. Have a group chat dedicated to code red alerts only, and a signal that lets your crew know the bark has turned to bite. Make sure everyone's equipped with their own go bags and escape routes to rally at the nearest safe house. And finally, plan for the aftermath. You'll need to explain to your neighbors why their trash cans are overturned, why your dog left scorch marks on their lawn, and why the street is littered with silver collars like it's some cryptid flea market. Stay calm, own up to the fact that your four-legged menace threw a hell of a tantrum, and reassure them that the dog whisperer you hired has it all under control. In summary, always have a backup plan for when your furry friend decides to go full feral. Know your escape routes, pack your bags, coordinate with your crew, and keep a straight face when the neighbors come calling. Because when it comes to Skinwalker dogs, preparation isn't just smart, it's your best friend. Tip 10. When all else fails, call in the pros. All right, my brave companions, you've made it to the final tip. If you've tried everything from silver collars to garlic treats, and your shape-shifting pooch still looks ready to turn your living room into a hellscape, it's time to call in the pros. This isn't about admitting defeat. It's about getting someone else to take the heat when your dog transforms into something out of a cosmic horror novel. First up, cryptid hunters. Think of them as a mix between a seasoned tracker and a ghostbuster with a passion for Bigfoot. These folks have all the fancy gadgets, from night vision goggles to mystical artifacts that look like they've been stolen from a haunted Indiana Jones set. Find a reputable team and let them work their magic. Sure, they might demand a little extra for travel expenses, but hey, no price is too high to avoid getting disemboweled. Then there's the local shaman or exorcist. You may have to wade through a few wannabes who are more interested in selling their spiritual cleansing kits, but a good shaman will know their craft. Whether it's sage smoke or chanting incantations in ancient tongues, they've got tricks up their sleeves to send a skinwalker back to whatever unholy kennel it crawled out of. Don't forget the really experienced dog trainers. Sure, they usually specialize in stopping barking and teaching tricks, but if you find the right one, they might just have the know-how to keep your demonic Fido on a tight leash. They won't bat an eye if your dog starts baring teeth like it's auditioning for Cujo 2. They've seen it all, and will probably have a squeaky toy solution for your worst-case scenario. And if things go nuclear, and your living room is starting to resemble the set of The Exorcist, you might need to get creative. Your local cryptozoology society might have some leads. Or you can try contacting those conspiracy theorists who keep asking if you're wearing wiretaps. You never know who might have that one obscure talisman or ancient incantation that does the trick. Lastly, stay calm, and don't let the pros sense your desperation. You need to keep your composure so they don't think you're entirely unhinged. Just enough that they know you're serious. They'll have questions, and probably some extra paperwork for liability, but hold your ground. Assure them that your possessed pup is a problem worth solving, even if it sounds like you're living in a B-grade horror film. In summary, when all else fails, bring in the experts. Be prepared to hand over some cash, answer weird questions, and maybe offer your own theory on Skinwalker lore. But remember, the goal is to get your dog back to good behavior, or at least to stop it from trying to summon demons every time you fill up its water bowl. Is your dog more than just a furball? Well, Skinwalker spotters, we've reached the end of our survival guide. And if you've made it this far, congratulations! You're now better equipped to handle your mischievous shapeshifter with a hearty dose of humor and a toolkit of strategies that'll keep them on a short leash, literally and figuratively. Remember, managing a dog that might be channeling ancient trickster spirits isn't just about holding on to your sanity. It's about knowing when to enforce boundaries, when to bring out the silver, and when to call in backup. Whether it's recognizing their diet quirks, catching them mid-sprint on a hidden camera, or crafting a foolproof escape plan, you're now ready to turn the tables on your deceptive companion. Sure, it might seem a bit intense to monitor your pup's movements like an FBI agent, but in this game of supernatural fetch, you can never be too prepared. And if all else fails, there's no shame in calling in the professionals to handle the tricks that are just a little too tricky. Above all, don't forget to laugh. In the face of growls that sound like they're from the underworld and furry antics straight out of Stranger Things, keeping your sense of humor will keep you grounded. Because nothing annoys a skinwalker more than not being able to freak you out. So, stay vigilant, keep those backup plans ready, and maybe upgrade your leash to titanium while you're at it. Here's to hoping your pooch's shenanigans can be contained to playing fetch in the backyard rather than in the netherworld. Thanks for sticking with us through this guide, and may your dog's howls remain just the regular kind, not the summon your neighbor's cat to the abyss variety.